This week we're looking at what is thus far the cheapest game featured on this show that isn't free to play. But, does cheap automatically mean sucky? Let's find out. Konnichiwa mina, Oriwa Gemini. Regular viewers of this show, and I expect that to be all of you, will no doubt remember its mission, to see if it's possible to have a good quality gaming experience for not that much money. But let's stop and consider a bit of irony with that. If you see a game that's free to download, chances are you're going to snap it up. I mean, it's free, why not? Now, generally, up till now, the games that have been featured on the show have been within the $5 to $10 range, and that sounds like a reasonable price to pay for a game that's cheap but good, right? But what would you do if you found a game, a relatively new game, for say $1 or $2? Well, if you're like me, then you're more than likely going to shy away from it, possibly even think, well, if the game's that cheap, it can't possibly be any good. Well, today, we're going to be taking a look at Labyronia, and we'll just see if that's necessarily the case. それでは、始めましょう。In December 1992, the Japanese company ASCII released a piece of software entitled RPG Tsukuru Dante 98, which became the first in a series of RPG Tsukuru titles, better known to us English speakers as RPG Maker. The first official English release of which was RPG Maker XP in 2005. Now, since its release, countless developers, both indie and mainstream, have been using it to crank out title after title. Some perhaps more well known than others, some a little more infamous. Labyronia is one such RPG Maker title. It was developed in 2015 using the VX Ace version of RPG Maker by a developer called Labyrinths, who also developed the game's sequel, Labyronia 2, as well as another game set in the Labyronia universe, Legends of Mysteria.
50 years ago, the nations of Labyronia were at war with each other. Then a mysterious item called the Pendant of Labyronia was created, and came into the possession of the four elemental gods. This resulted in the appearance of huge labyrinths, which covered the world, followed quickly by the appearance of monsters. After spending some time wondering just what, if anything, could be done about the labyrinths and the monsters, the battle mage this guy decides to go with the most Final Fantasy-esque solution he can think of, and gathers the four crystals of water, earth, air, and fire in an attempt to restore order to the world of Labyronia. As the game begins, Ares is unsure exactly how or why he's come to be where he is, or in the predicament he is in. He knows only that it is up to him to do something about it. Controls are about as simple as you'd expect in a basic 2D RPG like this. You move with the arrow keys, and you can toggle dashing with the shift key. Z is your action button, and X brings up the menu and cancels. When downloading the game, I noticed a complaint on the Steam forums that said it was only possible to play the game with a controller. Well, if that was the case before, it certainly isn't now. The keyboard works just fine for me. I don't want to spoil too many story details here, but what I can tell you is if you enjoy games with bits of lore and backstory to read about, Labyronia won't disappoint. There are a crapload of books scattered throughout the land that offer bits of info about Labronia's history, the various areas in the world, and how the labyrinths came to be. Combat is, again, standard for this sort of game. Random encounters only happen on the overworld map. In actual dungeons, monsters are generally represented by this flying eyeball thing, and if they see you, they move pretty damn quick to try to get to you. Now, it's in combat that one of my initial complaints was formed, as there didn't appear to be a way to try to escape battles, which would have meant no way to skip battles with lower level creatures later in the game if you're just trying to get from place to place, or if you just don't feel comfortable fighting a particular creature. I later discovered there actually is an escape option. The game just doesn't make it clear. When in combat, you can see a menu with options attack, aura, defend, and items. Pressing the escape key brings up a second menu with options to fight or escape. The escape option is unavailable when in a fight with a boss monster or in certain special circumstances like these werewolves in the deep grotto. But in cases where escaping is available, it seems to work 100% of the time. Or at the very least, it worked every time I tried it. So, let's talk more about how combat actually works. You've got your fairly self-explanatory options of attack, a basic physical attack, defend, guarding to reduce the damage from your enemy's next attack, and items, where you can use, well, items. But it's with this option where things start to get interesting. Aura brings up a list of aura skills you can use, each of which cost AP, or aura points. They run the gamut from fire and water, your basic elemental attacks, to skills which can prevent an enemy from using skills, or can shield against certain types of attacks. But what's interesting to me is not so much the skills themselves as how you get them. Scattered throughout the world are various objects you can interact with, known as cues. Now, sure, the act of getting a new skill might not be the most exciting. You find a cue, interact with it, boom, you got a new skill. But I do like how it encourages you to explore every bit of the map for anything that stands out or is out of the ordinary. Now, going back to combat for a bit, I will say that enemies in the beginning of the game can be tough, almost unfairly so. Another reason I was a bit miffed that there initially appeared to be no way to escape battles. One concern I do have with the skills is they seem to make regular attacks obsolete, at least later in the game. I've only noticed a scant handful of enemies in the game whose weakness is a straight-up physical attack. The rest of the time, physical attacks seem to do about as much, if not less, damage than aura skills. Here's another concern I have.
In all the clips of the game that I've showed you thus far, you might have noticed something. I'm all alone. Nobody traveling with me, nobody fighting with me. And that might get you thinking, well, that's kind of strange, an RPG with no party members. But here's the thing, there actually are party members, two to be precise. But they're introduced so late in the game, and I don't know why. I can't really think of a reason why they couldn't have been introduced earlier in the game without drastically affecting the storyline too much. Regardless, allow me to introduce you.
First, there's Garrick, an archer/ranger/whatever else you want to call someone who attacks with a bow and arrow. You first meet him in the snowy village of Glimthar, as he tries to restore heat to the people there, and is trying to complete the building of an airship. Both your additional party members use skills just like ours, but Garrick is a little different. Rather than using aura skills, which draw from a pool of aura points that deplete with each use, Garrick uses bow skills that draw from bow points which build as Garrick deals or takes damage. Then there's Anne, who you meet in the Desert of Illusion after getting stung by a giant scorpion which you were sent to by a couple of fairies.
Long story, don't ask.
Anne promptly cures you of the scorpion venom and immediately decides she's in love with you. Yeah, the story regarding these two moves very fast indeed once they join the party, which is another gripe I have. It just makes it seem like the addition of these two characters was a last-minute decision, and like the developer rushed to think of a way to add them to the party. Anyway, Anne here is a priestess. Her main physical attack is done with wooden staff-type weapons, and, as you might expect with a priestess, her aura skills all involve healing and status restoration, with the odd holy attack thrown in as well.
Now, it should be noted at this point that I myself have never played with any of the RPG Maker titles, so I can't really tell if some of the issues that I have with the game are on the part of the developer, or maybe just caused by possible limitations within the RPG Maker titles themselves. What is clear, though, is that even though there are signs that might indicate the developer was maybe a little inexperienced when he made Labyronia, he still managed to tell an interesting story and create a fun experience. Most of all, I was very nervous coming into this game because of the price, thinking that at $2 this would end up being, well, just another Out There somewhere. You know, a game that's 1, maybe 2 hours max and not very enjoyable at all. But I was pleasantly surprised. The game is very well put together, it's reminiscent of older RPGs, the music is excellent, and in all, we're looking at about a 10-hour experience. And even if you think $2 is still too expensive for you, I have seen this game on sale plenty of times since I've been on YouTube, so have a little patience, it more than likely will be again. The point is, Labyronia, I'm happy to say, is very much worth your time and is something you should check out as soon as you get the chance. Jikai made. Sayonara.
Thanks as always for watching, Mina. For those of you new to the show, just so you know, this is not the first time I have voiced my opinion on an RPG. Just last week I played Septerra Core for the first time in years. You can click the link on the screen to see what I thought about that. And to hear more about what I thought about Out There Somewhere, the other game that I mentioned in this video, there's a link for that as well. Or if you're just thinking, you know what, Jim and I'm gonna watch what I bloody well want, there's a link to the whole playlist for low-budget gaming. And if you like this video, then please consider liking it, and maybe even sharing it with some of your friends, or your enemies. I'm not judging. And even better, click the subscribe button as well, to stay up to date on all the videos that pop up here on my channel. Arigatou gozaimasu!